Just after 1 p.m. local time, a shorter stage, a later start. And I can tell you there would be no contest for the break when it eventually went. And it would go more or less straight away. Flag waved and a couple of tacks right from kilometre zero. You can already guess the men that are there. They've been there in the breaks ever since the start of this Giro d'Italia. Would it be one for Alessandro Petacchi? We will wait to find out. But in the break once again, Marco Bandiera for the 4th day in succession in the white. And now in the luminous yellow, the man who has more breakaway kilometres than anybody in the race for the breakaway prize. Andrea Fedi is the man out there. So we go live onto the course, post-rest day. Break of 2 out there. Andrea Fedi in the yellow. He's ridden 444 kilometres and leads the Fuga del Pinarello breakaway prize. Marco Bandiera with him has probably ridden more kilometres in the break, but he was in a break of 14. And of course, breaks of over 11 do not count towards that prize. So he lies 3rd in the breakaway prize at the minute. 340 kilometres for him. This is Fedi on the screen. Both riders are Italian, both riding for Italian Pro Continental teams. Both teams who have got themselves in the breakaway regularly. For the first time really in this Giro, we've no Team Colombia presence in the break. These guys went right from the start, more or less kilometre zero. No resistance from the other teams who will be happy after a rest day to just stay on the wheels and let the sprint teams do their job. Beautiful weather out there on the course. It's a little more cloudy at the arrival in Salsomaggiore. There's the pink jersey group. 114.1 kilometres remain. We had a gap of around 8.5 minutes. That was the maximum, but it's being controlled nicely by a group of sprinters teams who do not want to waste this opportunity today. There you have it, more or less as flat as they come on the Giro d'Italia. Sean Kelly, this is the sort of stage that sprinters dream of, isn't it?
Yes, well, when you look at the profile of this Giro, certainly a stack of stages there for the taking, so the sprinters are going to take this one and take control very early. And a 2-man breakaway, it's a dream for the teams to have that sort of breakaway out front because it's so easy to control. And it's going to be an exciting finish. There's a lot of guys here who want to get something out of this race, being very close, but close is not good enough. It's all about the win in the stage. For a sprinter, finish 2nd or 3rd, it's nice in the stage. It shows that you have the form, you're riding well, but it's all about the win. And we did hear with some of our interviews there, the riders are talking about, a team lead out is very important. Today will be important because the final is a very technical one. The final 7 kilometres, it is pretty hectic. A lot of islands turning left and right all the time, so the lead-out train will be really important.
Lead-out train will be important, as will have been the rest day yesterday. I think it will have been hugely appreciated after an opening week that involved rain, crashes, a long transfer, more rain, more crashes, and the first climbs of this Giro. The riders, I think, will have also having enjoyed a day without a long transfer. It was a true rest day, this one. Sean, did you enjoy your own rest day? What did you get up to?
Well, a bit of biking. It's about the only time that we get a nice bit of biking done because the day is pretty much tied up early morning. You're getting in situ to get in position for coverage, and you're always concerned about not being there. But when you have the rest day, you have the full day. You can go out on your bike, and if you're not back within an hour, if you're not back within 3 hours, it doesn't matter. So got a nice bit of biking done yesterday, and it's nice to turn the legs as well, as all the riders would do on the rest day. More so for the riders because they have been out there in the conditions, wet conditions, but with a bit of nice weather which they've been having the last 3-4 days. It's good to get out, and everybody, it's the done thing on a rest day. The riders always go out and do a ride. Some maybe might do an hour and a half, others might do 2.5, 3 hours, but I think in general it's normally about 2 hours, 2.5 hours ride what the riders will do. Very casual, of course, but you need to do it because the body is so used to riding every day. If you just lie around all day, the following day that you do not feel right, and that's what they're all concerned about, because if it's a very aggressive race the following day after rest day. But here today is not so difficult. If you have a mountain stage, well then that's what the riders will be really worried that they do this right and they want to be in good condition, especially the ones who are doing general classification here, the flat run, but still everybody gets out on the bike on rest day in a big 3-week tour.
5 minutes and 26 is the current advantage for our two leaders, Andrea Fedi and Marco Bandiera. Two men we've been talking about all along this Giro d'Italia. Going through Mirandola, damaged by the latest earthquake in this region. Extremely prone to earthquakes, as we found out in Abruzzo a few years ago, to devastating effect. But the rebuilding is going on in Mirandola. A couple of years later, and the Giro about to pass through town. Peloton will certainly be hoping that we don't have a big split in the peloton, just like we did last time we went to visit a site that had been damaged by the earthquake. That was that devastating one I was just talking about then in Abruzzo a few years ago, L'Aquila stage. That saw Richie Porte go into pink back in 2010. It was a day that won't be forgotten very, very quickly at all in the Giro d'Italia, in the history of the race. But today, pan flat, and the sprinters will be hoping that everything is fine as far as they're concerned. So good to see life coming back to normal in Mirandola. And everybody out to watch the Giro d'Italia. Said all week long that this is not just a cycling event. This is an event that unifies a nation, an event that's played a huge part in the history of Italy. With Bandiera and Fedi out there, they're creating their own little bits of history. It's got an interesting one, the fight for the breakaway prize. We've had so many riders out there. We've got the first and the third in that prize at the minute, and for these small teams, Sean, it's a prestigious prize nonetheless.
Well, all prizes for the smaller teams are prestigious. To get in the breakaway, that is prestigious in its own right, because, you know, to be out there on air for a team that gets a wild card. And the interesting thing in this Giro, the wild card teams, we have seen so much of them. They're in the break every day, and again today we have two teams wild card invitations into this race.
Commercial break time for us. Keep Eurosport Cycling tuned to your televisions. Loads to come on the Giro d'Italia. Intermediate sprint on the way here in Mirandola. Marco Bandiera wants to go out and take some more points for that. He goes across the line first. Andrea Fedi will come across behind. Expect there to be a bit of organisation a little further back in the peloton. Remember, still bonus seconds and points up for grabs. That points jersey really going to be fought out for. A nice one from Marco Bandiera there. Bandiera, the classics man. He's been out in the breakaway loads in this Giro d'Italia. He's already lost an hour, 23 minutes and 13 seconds over the first 19 stages. Frances Desjeux in the blue coming to the front. They hold the points jersey currently. Luca Mezgec for Giant Shimano, who'll be hoping to get on the ball with the points as well. Trek Factory Racing on the right-hand side. They've got Ricardo Zeudel, their Austrian champion, just riding on the front for them with the red, white and black jersey. And behind, they'll have Giacomo Nizzolo. Second place is all over the place. As we heard from the interview today, he wants a first. Jussi Väikkönen in third place, the Frances Desjeux man. Two Canadians there. Svein Tuft on the left-hand side for Orica Green Edge. There's Ryder Hagedal on the right. Svein Tuft all over the place in terms of all over the road at the end of that first week. Michael Matthews bandaged up. Hope that pink backside's feeling a little better, Sean. The nasty one he took the other day.
Yes, it was a nasty one, and there was a lot of riders down on that one. It was in full battle in that first 40 kilometres. I think it was about 35 kilometres, 38 kilometres of crash occurred, and we did see, you know, that first hour of racing was really hectic. The group trying to get away, so many groups getting out of the front of the peloton unsuccessful, and then there was that big crash. But there was at least 10 or 12 riders reading the medical report there. A lot of riders got, you know, big time road rash, and we see Michael Matthews, I think he had the biggest one.
Not a pleasant day. Lost a lot of dignity as well as skin on the way into that stage finish at Sestola. It was a hard stage, a stage where we really saw the final balance at the end of the week as to what happened so far in the general classification. We'll just see this intermediate sprint and then have a chat about the guys in the GC and how it's gone for them. There's Luca Paolini at the back in the red and white. Back to his normal habitat right at the back of the peloton. Svein Tuft, of course, of that Orica Green Edge team, the first man in the pink jersey at this Giro d'Italia. After the team time trial, having a chat with compatriot Ryder Hagedal. Hagedal of Garmin shop. 4 minutes and 30 down. Not completely out of things, but it's not looking good for him. And we're already seeing here's a real battle with the sprint trains. Trek on the right-hand side in the black. Right in the middle you have UC Viken, the Finnish champion. Beautiful Finnish champions jersey. They've done a great job, by the way, Française des Jeux. All traditional champions jerseys this year. We already saw it at Paris-Nice with Arthur Vichot. No sponsors on the front. Look really, really classy. On the other side, we saw the lime green. The lime green of Cannondale. They're looking for Elia Viviani. And look, this little fight for intermediate sprint points is causing a bit of a split in the peloton here at the moment. Nothing that people will worry about too much, because they'll all want it to come together again. Just let the sprint guys fight it out for themselves, avoid any crashes. And here we go. Riders being let out all the time. 2 sprints in one today. We'll have the final sprint on the line for that. But it's the Cannondale train on the left-hand side looking to try and put in their man, who is, of course, the man with the fever, Elia Viviani. He's already been in the red points jersey so far. We have the red points jersey of Nasser Bouhanni for Française des Jeux. He's a few points back. Ben Swift is there as well for Sky. Michael Matthews not getting involved in this. Roberto Ferrari is, though, for Lampre. He's in the dark blue and pink. 4 minutes and 3 seconds back. And we're seeing the gap between the breakaway and those behind change all the time, because this is a real lead-out, a proper lead-out for a proper sprint for those remaining intermediate sprint points on the way into the town of Mirandola. This is what's left of this group then. Ben Swift in the black, and here comes Elia Viviani. Viviani's going to go for the sprint here. Viviani is there. Ruffoni on the left-hand side. It's Roberto Ferrari as well. Nasser Bouhanni's not really going to make it up towards the front. Well played, Elia Viviani. He takes as much as there was on offer there. And for a man with a fever who's not feeling too good, a little bit under the weather, that's not a bad job, Sean.
No, not a bad job at all. The team doing a really good job there, and what a sprint. We can see there's only, what, 8 riders, 3, 6, 8 riders contesting the sprint here. The rest, you know, the lead-out men peeling off, but the peloton splitting up big time. And Cannondale, we can see here, you know, they did a really good job, a great lead-out, and taking, you know, the top 2 positions there in the intermediate sprint. And we see Ferrari there also marking up some points and, you know, getting involved. So some of the good sprinters getting involved, other ones not to get involved at all, as we see there. Michael Matthews, of course, he's, I think, still recovering from his accident 2 days ago, so but a hotly contested one there.
Viviani then nicking 3 points in the fight for the red jersey. The red jersey himself left a little bit abandoned by his teammates, Française des Jeux. They were doing all the work in the lead out to that one, but it was Cannondale who really surrounded and looked after Viviani. Viviani coming across, taking the points. Back to our breakaway then. Marco Bandiera just behind Andrea Fedi, who's the man on the screen at the minute. Italian rider, as I said right at the beginning of the programme. 444 kilometres out in the breakaways so far in this Giro d'Italia. Bandiera in the break for the 4th day in succession. But as we said, his last breakaway in that 14-man group on the way to Sestolad doesn't really count, because any breaks of 11 or over aren't included in the prize. I guess that we have that to stop a split in the peloton being called a break. Technical again into the intermediate sprint. They're certainly not making things easy for the sprinters in this Giro d'Italia, Sean.
No, you can see there there's a right-hander, then a left-hander immediately, and the riders had to correct it very, very quickly. We could see the Cannondale riders just getting a little bit surprised. It was so technically coming out of that right-hander, but everybody got getting around safely. And we could see there was, you know, a number of corners leading into it. It's not a straightforward one down a main road like we have here, for example. It would make it very easy, but again, you know, Cannondale just taking it up at a real good time. They were there at the front, and then they upped the pace very, very fast in that final 700 or 800 metres, and that's what you've got to do. If you can just hold off with 2 or 3 lead-out men and then just really hit it, and when you have a little bit technical, well, you have the advantage then, because, you know, you have a teammate in front of you. And for Viviani, sprinting real well there, considering the reports he has a fever, so doesn't look like the fever's bothering too much for the moment.
Might be a good sign when we get to the line. Pataki in conversation with Ferrari at the front there. 5 minutes, expect that gap to grow a little again. All the sprinters teams will be very happy that there's only 2 men in the break today. It's a dream situation for just about everybody in the peloton, isn't it? Because the GC guys can have a rest, the sprinters can put their teams to work at just the right time. I think everybody will be happy with this situation, won't they, today?
Yes, well, it's a casual day, really. You know, after the rest day, it's a day that some of the riders would like, because just to get back into the race again, a little bit more difficult. And if you had a stage where we started out like 2 days ago on Sunday, that would be a difficult start after a rest day. You know, some guys would have difficulty getting to that real fast 50 kilometres per hour of racing, and today was a bit easier. We see the breakaway got away very, very easy, and just making a nice tempo here on the front of the bunch, and 2 riders out in front, many teams controlling already. They're just rolling along there, so it's going to be one of these transition days for everybody.
Well, it's a day that should end in a sprint if there are enough teams interested to control things. We're seeing that at the minute. There's a very short climb to Bagni di Tabiano, 8 kilometres from the finish. It's a bit of an invitation to attack for anybody who can break the pace of the strong men on the front of the bunch. But as we saw then, there's more than enough teams interested here. A lot of the big sprinters still remain. We've lost Marcel Kittel, yes, we know, but we still have the likes of Viviani, Bouhanni, Nizzolo, Swift, Matthews, even if he managed to get interested for the end. Interesting that Matthews had to really be persuaded by DS Matt White and motivated after that crash to carry on, keep going. There's a great Orica Greenedge backstage pass down on YouTube that you can watch. They've produced these wonderful inside undercover team videos, and the way that he talks to Mike Matthews throughout the stage, saying, come on Bling, you stay on, plenty of more stages that you can win. He has stayed on, he's riding the day, still in recovery mode. We're off for commercial mode. We'll see you in just a couple of minutes. Inside the final 100 kilometres of stage 10 as the Giro d'Italia gets back underway following its rest day. 2 weeks of the Giro remain, but in those 2 weeks there are 10 climbing days. Today not one of those, this the easiest stage of the Giro d'Italia that remains. There's Andrea Fedi in his first ever Giro d'Italia. He's in the breakaway yet again, making a name for himself. Well, away from the break and on the general classification, it all started to shake up at the weekend. Stage 9 was followed by an immediate expectant Italian public questioning why Diego Ulisi's Lamprey didn't work in the way that Agir Desert did on Sunday, given that the climb suited his characteristics. Sean, it's amazing how a couple of wins can not only foment optimism, but even create immediate expectation for Diego Ulisi, criticised despite having won 2 stages for not really going like Domenico Pozzovivo did. Absolutely incredible.
Yes, well, with the way he's winning the stages, Ulisi, you know, he was so dominant in the stages. He won the uphill ones. I suppose the teams, first of all, will start to talk, the other riders, well, you know, why is not Lampe riding here? And I don't see the reason why. You know, they had a man up the breakaway, first of all, the other day, so that was a perfect card not to work. And the guys who are working on the teams, let's call them, they're all for general classification. And AG2R, for example, Pozzovivo, you know, he is definitely one of the favourites here after his performance the other day, taking 30 seconds for the other ones. Yeah, he was always a favourite, but now he's become more of a stronger favourite, more talk about him. So I would not, you know, if I was Ulisi, I would not listen to it at all. And there's no way I would put my team to work on the front on a mountaintop finish, because, you know, you just never know what way. If the big favourites go to battle, well, then it's going to be difficult for Ulisi to hang in there. But he did hang in the other day and, you know, won the sprint again. Maybe a little bit of mistake by doing that, unless he thinks he can win the points jersey here. That is possible as well, because, you know, he can get through the race. But when you know, take the sprint for the minor places at the top, well, then the other teams are going to say, well, you know, they never did anything all day, but they had them in the break, so that is the perfect tactic to work.
Well, Ulisi didn't sleep well the night before. 4 to 4.5 hours. He was awoken at 6 a.m. for a random doping control. Again, we understand why these things happen, but of course he arrived at his hotel way after 9 p.m. Didn't eat until 11, didn't get to bed until 2. Of course, there is certain bits of science, I'm led to believe, that say that 6 a.m. is the best time to check. But of course you also have to balance that off against the rider's health. Of course, after doing the stages they've done and after that first week of the Giro d'Italia, 6 a.m. doping control, 4 hours sleep, that's not good for anybody, is it?
No, and especially if you have a late start. I think it was around the 12:15 start on Sunday. So, you know, you're going to be woken up at 6, and if you're somebody who can go back to sleep easily, but a lot of the riders, when you woke up, well, then you're not able to get back to sleep again, and you're hanging around the hotel, and there's nothing as bad. If the stage is starting in the town that you're staying in, the hotel in the hotel is in the same town, well, then it's a long morning, and you're there just, you know, lazing about, and that is difficult. And the riders, with that late start, they would be hoping to lie on as long as possible and get up, you know, a maximum of 3 hours before the stage will start. But we understand from the testing teams that go around, maybe they do 2 teams as well. So the first team is an early call, and then the next one, of course, it's an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours later. So unfortunately, Ulissi and Lampre, they were the first port of call, and it was just the wrong day as well. If it was an earlier start and you had a transfer to do, well, you might be getting up at 7 o'clock anyway. But in this case, they were hoping to have a good lie on, and for Ulissi, it did not happen.
It didn't. He reckoned it killed around 10 to 15% of his energies for the day after. He also said that, well, I'm not against being woken up for a doping control, but they could do it at 8 instead of 6. He wasn't best pleased. It's funny that everybody seemed to have an opinion about Ulissi not attacking the other day in Italy, though. The great Francesco Moser, one of those who declared himself disappointed that Ulissi didn't at least attack, given the fact that there aren't too many stages left that suited him. Stefano Garzelli, in the meantime, on national television, said that in Ulissi's position, he would have put the team to work. So lots of different opinions, but of course one thing that we can be sure about is that Ulissi and Lampre had a brilliant first week at the Giro.
Yes, well, he has had a magnificent first week, a dream week. But go on the attack. It's easy to say go on the attack. Moser can talk, Francesco, but Garzelli, of course, he is the type of rider that would attack in that sort of finish. So, you know, you have to look at Ulissi. Was he capable of attacking? I'm not sure he was. I would doubt it a bit. And he was just hanging in there, and that's what he does. He hangs in there, just stays there, and then when he gets to the end, of course, he has that punch in the final. So, you know, the stage he'd won, I think he did a great performance just to be up there in the final. And again, on Sunday, I think he was just holding on in the most difficult sections. To go on the attack, I think it would be a bit of a banasque to get Ulissi to do that.
Well, interesting that paracyclist Colin Lynch from the Republic of Ireland's written in. Thanks, Colin. Always great to have you watching us, saying that, of course, in all likelihood, Ulissi probably specified 6 a.m. as his preferred hour for daily testing. Of course, he says that's what he normally does for wider. Of course, you have to fill in these whereabouts reports on the internet now, and it's a reality. I've been at an athlete's house before when they've been tested very, very early in the morning. They certainly do come on a random note, and it's all in all a very, very positive thing. But of course, 6 a.m. during a race, when you've got a late start, as Sean said, can really interrupt your rhythm. You mentioned Pozzovivo in there, Sean. Positive slant on him after the first week, surely. I think in previous years he's really struggled. He got caught up in avoidable time-loss situations. But this time he's looked solid, now entering a part of the race that really suits him. And one of the few riders not to really get caught up too much in the mega crash into Cassino on Thursday. Doesn't have any injuries, feels good, took some time back, and suddenly is looking one of the big favourites to finish inside the top 3.
Yes, I think when you look at the first week of racing in this Giro, the conditions we've had, I think for Pozzovivo, he's really come out well. The wet conditions and the nervousness of the race, he doesn't like that. He's not a good, fighter to be up front. The team always have a difficult job keeping him there, and to stay out of crashes, that was a big plus. Not to get a big fall and be carrying an injury, as some of the other big favourites are. And now, he's in a position. Took 30 seconds on Sunday's stage. He was a bit further off. He was about 8th or 9th. Now he's in 4th position. So he's, moved up and really in a great position as we go into the terrain that will really suit him. So and the team has been so good. AG2R, like the riders, there's 3 or 4 riders there riding so strong at the end of the stages. If they can continue on doing that, well, Pozzovivo is going to be a one. He'll cause a lot of problems for the general classification men.
Bandiera and Fedi out there in front. mention Agir Dezert, I think we should give a real mention to some of those in the team that are working so well. We've seen Hubert Dupont, Axel Domont, Maxime Bouet, Pozzovivo himself, the leader, so strong. Berard's been out in the break, but the man who's really impressed me at 4 minutes and 25, Alexis Vouillamont, is in the top 10, or the top 16, I should say, pardon me, of the Giro d'Italia at the minute, climbing really well as he was in Paris-Nice.
Yes, well, he's really going well this year. Of course, you know, he comes into AG2R, his fourth year there, and you know, riding the race like Paris-Nice, like the Giro, for him, it's, you know, it's a dream come true to be just there, and he is performing so well, and we'll have to see how well he continue on going. And you know, they've had such a great start to the year as well, and we've been reading the reports from the race. Peter Waning was saying, well, anything from what they had won in Orica Green Edge was going to be a plus, and you know, he said you're more relaxed, and I think that is the situation as well within AG2R, because they have had a fabulous beginning of season. They have won so many races, possibly a little bit of pressure as well. The director sportif is saying, well, Française de Joux has won 2 stages here, we have to get something out of this one, you know, to start showing ourselves, and so that maybe he might be putting a bit of pressure on as well. But when you have won already, it just takes, you know, that pressure off, and that's the time some of the riders, the lesser, you know, riders perform better because they're much more relaxed. Performing
fantastically, Agir Dezert, French team with an Italian leader. A lot of Italians think he can now win this Giro d'Italia. Back to the Giro d'Italia, stage 10, 90 kilometres remain. 5 minutes and 46 for our very lonely breakaway. Just 2 of them in there, Andrea Fedi and Marco Bandiera, names that we've seen time and again in the opening 9 stages of this Giro d'Italia. And after the opening 9 stages, we were saying before the break that a lot of people now think that Domenico Pozzovivo really can win this Giro d'Italia. It was actually the subject of, for the national television, the trial programme after the last stage, Il Processo. Former team manager Bruno Reverberi, who of course has the team of Bardiani, he was saying that he thinks he can win it. National coach Davide Cassani, formerly a commentator until this year, with a role change for him, he also is very confident that Pozzovivo can win this race. And remember, Il Dottore, they call him, the man with the economics degree, managing to make the numbers look more favourable for him on Sunday. Now, what about Ivan Basso, Sean? He still says that there are only 3 places on the podium, and it's clear for the moment that there are stronger riders for him. But he also said that people sometimes are too quick to make judgments. I think he's been going okay so far.
Yes, he is going okay, but I think to make a judgment for the top 3 places in the podium, we haven't seen and haven't been in the terrain where, you know, you can really make a prediction. The long mountains, you know, are to come, and that's where we will see, I think, where you have, you know, 10-12 kilometre climbs, and you have at least 2 or 3 of them in the day. That's when we will start seeing. And of course, the final week, you know, recovery, who is good in the final week, that's going to be very important as well, because if you start to tire for some reason, well, then you can pay the price. So, you know, making the predictions, Pozzovivo as well, I think it's early days that they're, you know, talking about Pozzovivo at the moment. The performance he put in, okay, but the time trials, you know, we have to remember around the 40 kilometre time trial. That's something I think you have to wait till then, first of all, before you can make any little predictions. And then, even then, I think you have to wait until we get a big mountain stage. I think Pozzovivo, he's in a really good position to get where he is at the moment and stay out of danger. I would find it very difficult if you ask me who's going to win the Giro and who's going to be the top 3 places on the podium at this moment. It would be like a Grand National.
so hard to predict. It's just that we can have a chat about it though today. There's so much cycling to be done until we get to the substance that will be the sprint at the end of today. We saw last week that in the case of Scarponi, as you say, you can have really good days, you can look like you're going to win something, but in one moment, on one stage, you can quite easily lose the Giro d'Italia. We saw Nairo Quintana there. Of course, both he, the Colombian athletes, and Team Colombia en masse wearing black armbands and white flowers at the start of today's stage. That in remembrance of an awful accident that has occurred in Colombia over the last couple of days in the town of Fundación. 32 children sadly losing their lives after a fire on a school bus there. Very nice to see, though, that everybody's showing their solidarity with the very sad moment that the nation's living. On the bike, Quintana fearful of the first week, I think. Survived it fairly well, though. I think he could be one of those few riders who's very competitive at their first ever Giro. Sean, the Giro is such a unique race that not many people come and are up there and the first time they ride it, are they?
Well, I suppose Quintana, he's a special because last year's performance in the Tour, you know, he just the performance he put in there, and you know, so cool as well. We see him in the mountain stages, and he's been the same here, and that's the way he can ride. He just, you know, in the mountains, he can sit there, be so cool, and it's really difficult to do when you're a super climber. Up to this moment, you know, he hasn't really made any moves. The question is he suffering a bit from the crash? And I was reading, I think, in one of the French, the L'Equipe newspaper, they said he's pulling the leg, and really seriously pulling the leg, not you know, not bluffing. He is having a problem with his hip at the moment, and that's going to be interesting. Well, will he overcome that? Will it get better? Will it get worse? That is the question. But after the crash, of course, the first number of days it's going to hurt, so maybe that's the reason he hasn't made any move. But he is, you know, in a really good position as well to get through all the obstacles we've had in the first week of racing with the wet conditions right from the start in Dublin, the big crashes we've had. To get through, although he's carrying an injury, it could have been much worse, because when you go down, we see Scarponi, you know, he got totally wiped out, a real bash in the ribs, and if that's, you know, real sore, well, then you lose so much time. So I think he's also in there. But talking about the general classification, you know, you can look at 5-6 riders at the moment who are capable of winning it, and that's why I say we have to wait a little bit more before I feel to give an indication. Pierre Rolland, as we can see here on our screen, I think he's a rider who is going to be, you know, very competitive, and he's only at 2:56. I think
12th at the minute. Yeah,
when he'll be when we get to the mountain stages, he might be allowed a little room there with that, so he could pull back a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then he becomes also a danger man. And the time trial, of course, for them all, the first long time trial is going to be important to get that over. We will see more the light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of the riders. I think concerning general classification, that will be the case for them.
One man we haven't talked about, the invisible man, Rigoberto Urán. He's just been in there hiding all week for a Mega Pharma Quick Step, but he's been hiding in second place alongside Rafa Maiko, who's in the white jersey, the best young rider, a little more visible in third place. Urán, again, another one who's just kept himself quiet, kept out of trouble, waiting and waiting and waiting, and a little bit, not as much as Quintana, but could afford to wait for the harder stages, Urán.
Yes, and I think on Sunday we did see a little bit of a flush from Urán. He you know, put in an attack there for a short time, and we see Cat 11's, he reacted very, very quickly and looked to be pretty comfortable, you know, staying in his wheel. Again, you know, he's probably thinking about this final week and the time trial as well. Urán, we know he can ride a good time trial, but he also can suffer sometimes. So I think for the moment, he doesn't want, you know, to really show himself, and he's getting away pretty lightly. There's not an awful lot of talk about him, and that's a good thing as well, because the press and, you know, all on top of you, and, you know, the questions at the start, at the finish all the time. He's having, I think, a relatively relaxed race, and that's a good thing before we come to this time trial.
Well, talking about the press and the pressure, everything on Cadel Evans at the minute. He was asked at the end of the last stage, you and I were asking on that stage 9, why would BMC riding so strongly on that descent? We thought that it'd be a little strange, perhaps a bit of an attack. He was asked afterwards by Italian television, and he said safety. Sicurezza, sicurezza. Safety, safety.
Yes, I think they were certainly, you know, playing safe, because they had Cat 11's on the front when they were descending. Before the final climb of the day, there was quite a bit of descending, and he was, you know, descending in third place all the time. So it's when you have two teammates ahead of you, and the teammates as well, they're always aware and always a little bit concerned. You know, if there's a corner coming that is a little bit of a blind one, and you're not too sure, well, then you just knock off your speed a fraction, and that, you know, he gets you around safely. And for Cat 11's just to do that, get down with the descent and play safe. And I'm not surprised they're playing safe, because with all the crashes we've had, I think everybody's a little bit nervous. So but is it safely, or what they thinking maybe are trying to pull back the breakaway and have time for bonifications? It's easy to say after finish, well, safety, it's a pretty quick answer.
He was happy to give that and get off, do the press and get home ready for the rest day. He'll have been happy not to face too many questions and press conferences over the last 24 hours. There's Alessandro Petacchi. We're going to go through Parma today, scene of his last win on the Giro d'Italia. A win where he beat Mark Cavendish. I remember I was there that day. I had to interview them both at the end. I can tell you, Cav, I wasn't particularly looking forward to speaking to him after he'd been beaten by Alessandro Petacchi there. Good news is they're good friends now. They're on the same team. Cavendish on his way back from a very successful outing in California. Petacchi, not the ideal finish for him today. 6 minutes 29, still a lot of work to be done by those behind, but it's not going to be a difficult job just to pull in this two-man break today. 84.7 kilometres remain. Fedi and Bandiera still out there on the way into Salso Maggiore Terme. 88 kilometres into this stage, just over halfway so far on stage 10 of this Giro d'Italia. Hello everybody, welcome back. 82.8 kilometres to go, 6 minutes and 40. The advantage allowed to rebuild again after the intermediate sprint we had. On the way to Salso Maggiore Terme on this stage 10 of the Giro d'Italia. It's been sunny for most of the day, just clouding over a little now. It's a nice, lazy, happy day for everybody in the peloton. Only 2 men away. A lot of the teams who don't have any interest in the sprints will just be wasting and waiting on the wheels today. Fairly strong out, but nobody really riding at any ridiculous sort of pace. It's flat roads all the way. Sky have started to put a man on the front. That man is Salvatore Puccio. They'll be looking for Ben Swift today. We're going to see efforts from Elia Viviani despite a fever. Nasser Bouhanni wants to hold on to that red jersey. Michael Matthews, will we see him? We're not quite sure. The day of recovery after he left most of his shorts on the road the other day. And Luca Mezgec as well. Let's see how it pans out. A lot of conversations. It's a day to be able to chat to your friends if you don't have too much work to do. As always, we're getting some nice questions and feedback on Twitter. Thank you very much to everybody for that. Remember, you can write to us, hashtag #Eurosportcycling, @RobHatchTV. Questions for Sean or myself, send them and we'll do our best to get round to you. A few people have been asking Sean about the shots we saw, the little stem cards and the stem notes taped to the stem of various riders. Usually shows the profile and times. Do you add any other of your own info to that, Sean?
Lunchtime. The ravitaillement. I think that's important for some riders as well when you're riding along with the peloton. And
only 20 k's to go until I can have a sandwich.
Yes, and you're after eating most of your food, but they go back to the cars as well a lot. But when you get to the feed station, of course, you get the as some of the riders call it, the feed bag, the nose bag, but the musette, I suppose, is the correct word for it. But yes, we see the riders there, and they come through and they get the gels, they get the energy bars, but they also get something, you know, a piece of bread roll. We've seen riders eat, you know, a bread roll, probably with maybe a bit of ham, possibly a bit of cheese with a little bit of jam, just to change the taste from the energy bars and the energy gels, and of course that small can of Coke as well. We've seen the riders. You look forward to that when you're out there for the stage, and there's a little bit of warmth. You get thirsty, and of course when you're out there for a week racing, you're having these isotonic drinks as well. They're very sweet, and it's difficult, you know, to stomach them all the time. So the can of Coke is really look forward to. So the feed station, I think, when you're riding along at a slower pace and you're just trying to get through the day, as we're having here, you start thinking about the feed station, and that of course is already on the route card you have. But you have everything on there, the intermediate sprints and, you know, the distance as you come through the towns, and, you know, so it's just a little bit of information. But now with earpiece from the team cars to the riders, well, you can ask a question at any time. Where if you go back before we had that facility, well, then that race card, and it was there 25 years ago. I remember Tour of France, Tour of Spain, you always had that, and, you know, you either put it on your bars or put it in your pocket, and you just take it out as you're going through a town, and you can see exactly how many kilometres to go.
Didn't used to have that umbilical cord that binds you to the beat of the sporting director's rhythm. Just getting a look at how everything stands. Bouhanni leads by 16 from Giacomo Nizzolo in the points classification. Elia Viviani picked up 3 extra points today. Ferrari in 4th as it stands as well. Ferrari doesn't have the team particularly to set himself up for the sprints, but he'll be having a go trying to surf the wheels. Climber standings look like this. Diego Lisi with his 2 finishes uphill so far going well. 2nd behind Julian Arredondo, that massive breakaway that took him into the lead in the point standings on Saturday. So that's how all the jerseys stand. Teams by time with a Megafarmer Quick-Step in charge ahead of the Azure Desert team that we were praising very highly at the beginning of our programme. BMC in 3rd, Lampre and Tinkoff Saxo in 4th and 5th. And the team points are being led by Lampre Merida. A couple of wins for them. Trek Factory Racing going very well as well. Orica Green Edge in 3rd place at the minute. It's a warm day. Helmet off and on. Maybe even a new one. A dry one from the team car. Rada Hejdal, winner of the Giro a couple of years ago. Just replacing his. BMC, Sean, we saw them in the lead with Cadel Evans. Interesting that they've got Alan Piper on board this year. In his influence on the squad, what do you think it will be? You and I spoke to him very briefly at Paris-Nice earlier in the year. A lot of people in cycling talking about the change in mentality of BMC racing this year, going from a squad of stars who really failed to fulfill their obvious potential to now a team full of power and wins now equaling the size of investment in the riders. What effect will Piper have had on the Swiss-American squad?
Well, it seems to be having a big effect. You know, we all see Jean Lalonde, who was there for a number of years, wasn't really from a cycling background. You know, I think it's totally changed with Team BMC. The way they're performing this year and the race they've won, we see Philippe Gilbert in Liège-Bastogne-Liège, you know, performing so well. The performance he put up there in that final kilometre was something we see at the World Championships when he won there in Valkenburg. And you know, the team is really riding well with Evans here performing so well. They've had a great beginning of season, and you know, it looks like that this Giro is going to be a big one for them. The question is now, you know, can Cadel Evans win outright the race? And he is certainly looking good at the moment. But considering what they've got out of the season, I think, you know, they cannot complain. And I think a lot of that goes down to Piper, because he's put, you know, that I suppose, the management, the way he's worked the riders, what, you know, programs they do, all of that, and that is a big amount of work in the early part of the season, the off season, and it's certainly, you know, changed big time for BMC, and I think Piper has, you know, to get a credit for quite a lot of that, if not all.
Marco Bandiera in the white there, coming to show off his team sponsor to the almost 600 million people watching on television globally. Now the statistics of the Giro d'Italia, 174 countries. Bandiera doing a great job for Androin Giocattoli. You can see 150th on GC, and you can hear "Vai ragazzi, vai!" right from the side of the road. There's plenty of encouragement for these guys. Andrea Fedi there, going back to talk to the team car. We already saw the almost daily shot of Gianni Savio having a chat with Marco Bandiera. He might be well up for the Employee of the Month award, Marco Bandiera. He's always getting into the breakaways there, and Savio having the daily conversations with him for the car. It's down to the sprinters teams today. Française des Jeux in the blue at the front, Giant in the black and white, Cannondale on the right hand side as well in their lime green jerseys. Sky just behind as well for Ben Swift. Sky needs something out of this Giro d'Italia. They'll be hoping that Ben Swift can win a stage. Poor in the last few days. Dario Cataldo did manage to finish in the group on Sunday, but was dropped heavily on Saturday, lost a lot of time, now 24 minutes behind. Constantin Stitzo is the best place rider for Sky, 20th at the minute. 76.8 kilometres to go, 6 minutes and 18 seconds. Remember, questions and comments, hashtag Eurosport Cycling, as we see the peloton so strong out that there's 20 seconds from front to back. Well, Phil, who's watching from Florence in Italy, asks who makes the winners' jerseys. Well, SMS Santini have the contract at the minute to make those jerseys. They're actually designed in Ireland this year. Irish designer Fergus Niland on behalf of the manufacturers, trying to strike the balance between the Giro d'Italia and, of course, the Grande Partenza on the island of Ireland. Irish designs and graphics on the jerseys, like the tweed pattern. There's also a stylized shamrock on it as well. We mustn't forget as well the charity partnership, Oxfam, represented on this Maglia Rosa this year, the pink leader's jersey. Giro fights for Oxfam, the official slogan. Sean Kelly was talking about it. Here it is, feed zone. Lunchtime. Best part of the day on these sorts of transitional days for a lot of guys who don't have anything riding on it. What have I got for dinner? 5 minutes and 42 is the gap between the two leaders in the peloton at the moment. Expect that to increase now that lunch is being taken on. There's certainly no hurry to bring these guys in. There is a little bit of an incentive for anybody who wants to attack at the end of today's stage. Bit of a lump up to Bagni di Tabiano. Comes with around 8 kilometres to go, and we're told, Sean, that there's a bit of a technical descent off that.
Yes, well, the summit is actually, I suppose, the important is 4.9 kilometres, and then you have the descent. Roughly, I'd say maybe a kilometre 500, kilometre 700, and then you have a flat section. So it is a bit technical, and will we see somebody trying to go in the attack? And it's very possible, because some riders are going to say, well, if I wait for the sprint with the big sprinters, I have no chance here, and we could see a bit of action on the climb and then on the descent, where they will really push on and try and, you know, just get away in them final number of kilometres.
2 away at the moment. Lunch being taken, 5 minutes and 36. So this is the easiest day of the week without doubt so far. What is ahead, though? Tomorrow, I think we're looking at a bit of a classics day. We go to Liguria, which is classic country, of course, Milan-San Remo country. Finishing in Savona down the road from there. After that is the time trial, big one. Celebrating wine country on Thursday, Barbaresco to Barolo. After that, we've got a finish in Rivarolo Canavese. It could be one of those days for the sprinters. Not many chances left. Saturday is going to be the big day of the week to Europa. And also Sunday as well. 2 big mountain days then. Sean, for the general classification, which day stands out for you this week?
Well, I think the time trial is the one which is going to be a concern for everybody, because when you're up there in general classification, unless you're a super time trialist and you perform every time real good in the time trials, then you're a little bit more relaxed. But if you look at the general classification, men here, Cadel Evans off past, he has put up some great time trials, but I suppose more recent, which we have to look at, he's struggled a few times, and I think there'll be a little bit of concern there that he mightn't be on his best day. And then if you go down the general classification, Uran, normally he puts up pretty good time trial, but again he's come up with some, you know, disappointing ones. And then Pozzovivo again. So there's a lot of guys, I think, they're doubting and they're concerned about the time trial, and just wait to get this time trial over and see where they are, you know, what way against the other favourites they have worked out in this time trial of 41 kilometres, which is a long one and a difficult one as well. And you know, you go on down the list then, Quintana as well performs well in time trials, and he should be pretty good, but I think, you know, they're just taking day by day at the moment, and the time trial is a little bit further out there in their mind at the moment. Get this time trial out of the way and see what the positions are then, and if you put in a good time trial, Pozzovivo, Quintana, all of those guys, Mike as well, he's another one. Yeah, he can time trial very well. He's a strong rider. Last year he put up a great performance, so he could be the one who could cause a lot of problems for the general classification guys.
In Pozzovivo's defence, I'm thinking back to the Vuelta last year. There's a similar length time trial, similar amount of climbing. Can't remember where the stage finished. I think he came third, didn't he, on that stage? A very, very good time trial from him then. And again, this isn't just any time trial. This isn't a Tour de France time trial. This is going to be quite a difficult one. There's quite a few obstacles, a bit of climbing. It's got a little shorter. Was due to be around 45 k's, now 41, as you say. And there's climbing straight from the off, another climb towards the end. It's not going to be your typical time trial from A to B, more or less flat, with the big guys going at it.
No, it's not flat at all. It's going to be a difficult one. The one thing I would say is that there's not any super time trials here, like Chris Froome, for example, or Bradley Wiggins, who can really put in, you know, a fast time. We've seen Alberto Contador as well. When he's really going well, he can put up these super fast time trials. I think when you look at it here, it's more balanced, and it's going to be an interesting one to see, but it's very much balanced, and I would be reckoning that it will be not a lot between the big favourites, but that is something you never know, because a guy can have an off day, and if you have an off day, the wrong day for the time trial, well, you can lose, you know, 2.5 minutes, and that would be a disaster if you lose that sort of time against the other big favourites.
Well, one man who'll be targeting the stage win on the day will be Adriano Malori, without doubt. Former Italian time trial champion, Movistar rider this year. Today he's riding for his home city in Parma. Adriano Malori from Parma, but of course targeting that time trial from Barbaresco to Barolo, 41.9 kilometres, climbing all the way up to 650 metres above sea level. It's a fourth category climb straight from the off. Another couple of climbs towards the end. It is not going to be an easy day. $70 kilometres remain on stage 10 of this Giro d'Italia, almost halfway through the Giro. Tomorrow was due to be the longest stage of the race, as in terms of distance. But of course we had those extra 10 kilometres a few days back to make us have a stage of 250 kilometres plus. Train stopped, thankfully, at the level crossing, not the other way round. Peloton don't want to have to do any extra work trying to bring the breakaway back in. We've seen it in many a race where there have been problems of the gap extending thanks to a level crossing problem. Seems to happen a lot in the Tour of Switzerland, Tour de Romandie, races like that, all those Swiss mountain railways. 5:37 at the minute. Sun back out again, which is great to see. Giro d'Italia coming to town on a Tuesday. Savona tomorrow. Talked about the difficulty of the stages. We're off up into the Alps after that. Barolo, and then we go uphill to Canavese, Oropa, and then Plan di Montecampione. That's Sunday's stage. The final week begins with another very, very difficult stage as well. Valmartello. It was the day when we were supposed to have those big climbs to Gavia Stelvio last year. So Cimacoppi will come that day on stage 16. After that, we've got Vittorio Veneto, one for the break or even maybe a sprinter. Rifugio Panarota, then Montegrappa, Montezoncolan. 3 stages together that really is going to decide the Giro d'Italia. And that's the thing about this Giro. You could take a big advantage on the time trial and have a good weekend in the mountains, but still lose it next week. It's so up and down, and you have to be consistent right to the end this year.
Yes, well, you have to be very consistent and very good in the final week, and like the mountain stages in the final week, they are as difficult as you get in any big 3-week tour, if not more difficult, and that's where, you know, you have to be recovering quite well, feeling good in the final week, and it's not always the case for everybody. You know, the third week you can start to suffer, and if that is fatigue sets in, well, you can pay a big price.
Into 70 kilometres to go. 69 now, 5:23, the gap staying the same. You can see the peloton is particularly strung out, but everybody having conversations, nobody really bunched up, and there isn't too much strong riding being done on the front. You can see, though, good 20 seconds from front to back of the peloton. Off To Salso Maggiore Terme today, an historical site for the Giro d'Italia. First came back in 1936 in a very, very famous win, Gino Bartali. Back in 1950 when Oreste Conte won. Rick van Looy, the first foreigner to win in 1959 for Belgium. Jacques Anquetil won the year later as well for France. Adriano Durante winning for the Italians in 1963. There was another stage finish in 1977 as we see the Italian champion Santa Romita there. It was Giacinto Sant'Ambrogio then. Francesco Moser himself won a stage in 81 here, and the last time we were here, 1988 for a stage finish in Salso Maggiore Terme. We've had stage start since then. Paolo Rosola was the winner on that day. We're seeing Gualtieri here, Palazzo Bentivoglio, alongside the cathedral, the main sites in the city. Antonio Ligabue, famous painter, spent some time here, not to be confused with Luciano Ligabue, modern Italian rock singer who also hails from this region of Emilia-Romagna. 67.8 kilometres to go. Time for a break on the Giro d'Italia. Keep your questions coming. Hashtag Eurosport Cycling. Average speed of 42.46 kilometres per hour. Almost as fast as Sean Kelly was going on the rest day yesterday. Is that true?
On that downhill piece, which was about 5k, I think, of a descent.
Just got over 50 there. Thanks to Gary Lodge for riding in, who's at home recovering from surgery. Get well to you soon. He says too, the team still pay riders who are injured. It's good to know that in this modern day era of secure contracts, yes, they do. Of course, all depends on how long the contract is for, of course. There's also insurance payouts and all sorts of things, though. Riders are, certainly compared to your days, a lot better looked after now, aren't they, Sean?
Yes, well, much better looked after, and it was far overdue, you know, in cycling. When you see the commitment the riders have to make compared to the other sports people, biking was very, much underpaid. It has improved a lot in the past years, and now there's the minimum salary, Continental Pro Tour teams, you have to pay a minimum to the rider, and of course then it goes on and we hear about these sums the big riders are being paid. But I think they all deserve it, and the insurance as well. Some of the insurance, I know, if you have a contract and then there is an insurance policy there, if you have a bad accident, you're out for more than 3 or 4 months, then the insurance comes in and they pay your salary. But certainly the riders have to be paid if you have a bad accident, which we've had some in this Giro, and they can be out for 6-8 months, and the rider still has to try and come back, and he has to work very hard to do that, and he needs to be paid.
The likes of Angel Vicioso, who's at home and has reportedly decided to retire. We've heard a few conflicting reports since then as to the fact that he may try and come back and be persuaded to try and come back, but at 37 it's so difficult. I'm pleased to report that Angel Vicioso actually took his first steps after his femur fracture the other day down the hospital ward. He was helped by a little bit of apparatus they had to help him learn to walk again, and of course the nurses too, so that recovery and operation looks to be going well, and it is very, very nice to hear. A few technical questions coming in, thanks to Trevor for riding in as we go along the River Po, famous for its rice plains, of course. Trevor asking about spares and everything during the race, saying, Sean, is there a limit to the amount of spares, tyres and everything that you can use?
No, it's no limit, and it's something that we talked about in the earlier part of the race. The bigger teams, with our start this year in being in Belfast, the big teams with the backup they have got, that's with vehicles, the buses and the team truck for the mechanic, and the team car. So the big teams, they had a bus back for the stages in Ireland, and then they had another bus waiting when the riders went back. But of course the smaller teams who are in here with a wildcard invitation, they do not have 2 buses, so they had to come to Ireland with something smaller like a camping car, and the bus was staying in Italy when the riders went back there. And the material, there's no restriction of what amount of material you have, but all the teams have sufficient amount of material, and in a a 3-week tour, of course, you don't damage that much material. Or this year there's been a lot of damage because of all the crashes. It's not like in a Paris-Roubaix where you expect, you know, a lot of material damage on the day of a Paris-Roubaix, but this one, I think there's a lot of bikes. We did see right from the start, and I was talking to the mechanic from Garmin Sharp, and he was building time trial bikes in Belfast late into the night, because I can't remember, he said 2 or 3 of the time trial bikes were totally write-off. So you know, it started off badly for Garmin Sharp, and then we see, you know, so many other crashes, and you can be guaranteed there was a lot of bikes wiped out there. So you know, you need a lot of backup. But the big teams and the smaller teams, they have a, you know, sufficient backup for a 3-week tour.
Everybody provided with what they need to ride, which is how it should be at this professional level of road racing. There's Brescello, famous for the Italian movie series Don Camillo e Peppone. Scene of reenactment there. Well, we've seen that book that was on about the other day with Tim Moore riding the 1914 Giro d'Italia. I think that gentleman has got a bike from the 1914 Giro d'Italia as well. And there is that scene reenactment. .6 kilometres to go. Inside 5 minutes now, the gap. Again, it's a case of just timing this right today. It's a nice calm day. Nobody wants any silly attacks towards the end, certainly that are going to ruin the sprinters' challenge. You can imagine there's a couple of small teams planning that, certainly those without a sprinter. Neri Soto, they don't have a sprinter anymore. Francesco Chicchi is the man who was attempted to sprint for them. Simone Ponti has a fast finish, but not against the big guys. A lot of people asking us about Team Alonso. So much going on behind the scenes that we're none the wiser, really. Everybody is waiting to see what happens with that. Of course, the UCI in discussions with Team Alonso, and whoever the sponsors are going to be, it sounds as though it's going to come from the Middle East. We shall see what the racing decides to do. 4 minutes 48. Support for the Brazilians. Murilo Fischer, the only Brazilian who's in the peloton at the moment. Former national champion will be riding through for Française des Jeux. Bandiera and Fedi, the men out there in the break. A few people as well asking what was that white flower hanging off of Oran's jersey. Well, we mentioned it right at the start of the programme. It's a symbol of mourning in Colombia, a symbol of solidarity with an awful accident that saw 32 children lose their lives tragically in a bus fire just the other day. All the Colombians in the peloton showing their own signs of mourning today. It's all nice and calm as we go along the River Po. Leading into Lombardia, of course, all those famous rice and risotto dishes come from. Started out in Modena today, famous for its food, sports cars and opera singers. Balsamic vinegar, Ferrari, Lamborghini and Pavarotti, all names associated with the city of Modena. A view of a megaphone, a quick step. Alessandro Petacchi there at the back. Julien Vermont with him. And Ilio Case as well. A nice shot this one we're getting this year from the side of the motorbike. Real appreciation for the speed that the riders are travelling at. Of course, we've seen cameras in the peloton over at the Tour of California as well in the sprint. Time for us to go for a commercial break. We'll be back with all the action as we build up to the expected sprint today here in Salsomaggiore Terme on the Giro.